Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have a band called Ordinary Elephant. I had a chance to talk to Crystal and Pete Damore from Ordinary Elephant, and we had a really fun chat. We talked about of course, their music being stuck. Talked about them being stuck in Australia during the pandemic. Not really stuck, but kind of there at the moment it happened. And their new album, the self-titled that came out in May, and dug into that a bit, as well as so much more. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Before we do, a little bit about what's going on in my world. I'm pretty stoked, I'll be honest, because my son's room is clean and my daughter's room is pretty clean, and it's those little things that kind of go a long way. We gutted a lot of stuff out of my son's room, and he had this really interesting sleeping situation. And I promise I'm not a bad dad. And any story that starts with "I promise I'm not a bad dad," you're sure he's going to be great. So have CPS's number on speed dial, because here it comes. But he had a loft bed where the mattress was lifted and off the ground, and there was a shelf for all of his stuffed animals and a ladder that you can climb up to get up to the bed. Well, he never really slept on that bed. After a while, he kind of stopped sleeping on it, and there was a fold-out like futon that was beneath it, like a folding cot futon, and he would sleep on that. So he never even really slept on a mattress over the past 9 months to a year, really, because that he kind of strayed away from sleeping on the mattress. He likes sleeping under the bed ultimately. And once or twice in the past month or two, he'd mentioned, oh, he wanted a new bed. And I was like, "What? You got one, you just don't sleep on it." And so we explored that a little bit further, and I was like, okay, well, I can take the legs off and take the shelf with all his dolls, his stuffed animals off and everything, and we can do that. His room's a mess right now, so my daughter also wanted to do some work in her room and get a bunch of hangers and storage containers to kind of clean up stuff in her room. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get these things for you, but you're going to do chores to earn them, and the main chore being helping me with your brother's room. So we put in some hours yesterday and took apart the bed to where it's now it's now much lower to the ground. There's still room beneath it, but he slept on a mattress at my house for the first time in a long time. We'll call that a win. After I dropped my kids off this morning, at their mom's house, I talked to their mom and stepdad about a treadmill that they have in their garage that they weren't using and haven't used, and maybe used once or twice. I don't know, not really treadmill folks necessarily. It's been sitting collecting dust with stuff on top of it, and not just collecting dust, but also collecting black widow eggs and that sort of thing. So I went to clean the thing off, but I was like, well, I'll get some use out of that. I've wanted a treadmill. And it'd be cool to have at some point. And so they helped me clean it, get it out and clean it off and load it into my truck to bring home. And I had a buddy that lives a mile from me, and he had said he'd be able to help me unload it and get it inside. And I thought this would be, it's gonna be easy. I was like, I even called him on the way. I was like, hey, you free at 11? And he said, yeah. He'll finish breakfast and be right over. And I was like, yeah, okay, it'll take 5 minutes. Didn't take 5 minutes. We tried maneuvering this thing. We get it up to the door, and we tried maneuvering in different angles. First, straight in, no, it wouldn't fit it that way. Okay, how about on the side? No, the screen wouldn't do it. Wasn't working out. And so eventually, I'm like, okay. I'd thrown the idea out a few minutes before, but I was like, do we need to take off the front door? And he's like, I don't want to do that. We ended up needing to take off the front door to fit this thing in, because it was so close. It was just an inch or two max that it was not fitting. It's always that inch or two max, isn't it, that it doesn't fit. And so we take off the front door, and then we're able to shimmy. We even still think we're like, is this thing going to fit in, sort of thing. I'm like, well, I'll either not have a treadmill or I have to use it outside, which obviously wouldn't be a good long-term solution. But we were able to get it in, and luckily got that all handled, and then and then I went from that and getting that all set up and everything, pretty straight into a band interview for the gentleman who I spoke to, who's going to be on the program next week, and his name is Jack Barksdale. So stay tuned for that. It was a really fun chat as well. So, but today. We have Ordinary Elephant. Like I said, they put out their self-titled album. They are also in the area. They're on the West Coast right now, so I want to promote their show. And they were, when we talked, they were in Arcata, California, and they're working their way down to Grass Valley yesterday, and then September 11th they're playing in Berkeley at the Back Room. So tickets are available for that. Recommend checking them out because their music is a lot of fun. And I'm not able to make the show, but recommend it if you're able to go check. You can check out that show. All right, let's get into my interview with Ordinary Elephant. Here it is. Hey, Crystal. Hey, Pete. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you too. How are things in Louisiana? How's the weather right now?
Oh, it's great, but we're actually in Arcata, California right now.
Oh, you're out here on the West Coast. What's going on in Arcata?
Yeah, we just played last night at the Arcata Playhouse. Really cool little venue, theater kind of thing.
Yeah, and how was that show?
It was beautiful.
It was great. A really beautiful audience, and yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, you have more shows on the West Coast happening?
Yeah, we've got a ton for us, at least. The Back Room, and then Soquel, which I think I'm saying that right, maybe not.
Probably.
Near Santa Cruz. And then 3 in Southern California, Santa Barbara, LA, Santa Monica.
Yeah. The last time you played shows on the West Coast was like 2022, right? It's been a couple years.
Were we here last year?
Yeah, we were
here last year.
Yeah.
23, yeah.
Okay, I made that up. So
we were here in 22 also. Like we kind of
yeah
did bits and pieces.
I don't know if we did much. I can't remember if we did Santa Rosa last year.
That was maybe 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago.
It all blends.
Yeah. I'm sure it does when you're on the road. I mean, are there things like you like to do and places you like to kind of go when you're on tour?
For sure. Well,
yeah, I mean, we like to get out in nature when we can, go for like see outside things, but it can be hard having the time, like on to the next place, and we don't have time to explore places like we would want to.
Right. Yeah, you got to get in, load in, do the sound check, all of that, and everything. Does your dog come with you? And
yeah,
we have two.
Yeah, we have two.
Okay, they come along, huh? You got to stop. So you got to stop for them along the way too, I'm sure.
Yeah,
so.
they keep us honest with the pit stops.
Yeah, you still use the RV?
Yeah, we built out a van in the last few years. Kind of, van lifing it when we're on the road.
Like we bought it empty and have made it what we need, turned it into what we need. That's where we are now, is in the van, which has been good.
Yeah.
I don't know that we talked about that all the time. I don't know that we could sustain without that. Like the people that fly for shows and get hotels and rental cars and all this, like I don't know, it would be
too much.
Yeah, it wouldn't work for us. Like having our little slice of a home with us everywhere makes it feel sustainable.
So home away from home, and you, I know you eat really healthily too. So do you, I mean, how much of that preparation do you do ahead of time? Like, do you pack a bunch of vegetables and stuff, or what does that look like for you? Because it's hard, I'm sure. Lots of lots of open road where there's not a 76 station with with the fresh food that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go to groceries when we're on the road, grocery stores, and like either get a salad kit and the like pre-picked rotisserie chicken that got left out, and they those are our go-to
Yeah.
quick meals, and then
And like when we're leaving for a tour, I'll often like cook a bunch of stuff to like have already for a few days, and then we'll cook on the road too. Like if we have a day off, we'll try to cook a bunch of stuff. And yeah, if we're staying at someone's house at some point, we'll like use their kitchen and oven. And I mean, we can cook in here, but it's small. But when we have access to a kitchen, we try to get a bunch of stuff cooked and yeah.
roast some veggies,
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, but you're okay with the Chipotle, I hear.
Chipotle is one of our favorites. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Um,
yeah. Oh, and we found a new one, Cava, Cava. It's
Okay.
not everywhere yet, but it feels Chipotle-esque, like in the like, here, make your own thing, say what you want, but it's not like Mexican leaning. It's just like healthy stuff,
it's
like
it's Mediterranean,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess it
kind of
is.
Middle Eastern Mediterranean. They have like lentils and hummus and
Roasted vegetables and just
yeah,
like what we make in the van, just like this bowl of stuff that we would make, and it's quick and easy,
and
and
fresh.
the sauces are very good. And I'm a
It's a
sauce
ch-
person.
it's a chain though. Like
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm in the Bay Area, so I'm not sure if I've seen them, but maybe I'm just
They
not
didn't
looking in the right places.
take
They're one of
over
the fastest growing. They took over
Zoe's.
Zoe Kitchen a few years ago, so
Yeah,
I think a lot of those turned into Kava.
yeah,
But we just found it this year, so we're still figuring out where it is and where it isn't.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll need to check it out. My son's favorite is Chipotle, and so if I can find something similar that's not that every time for
Yeah,
him,
exactly.
Little variety.
Yeah, I feel like our Chipotle orders are always the same, so we gotta space it out.
Yeah. We go for the barbacoa. We're big
That's
barbacoa,
so good.
So I know, right? Can't go wrong. So. Let's talk music a little bit. So I'm interested in kind of your origin story with music and kind of what you were into, what was going on in your household as kids. Like what were your parents listening to? We can kind of start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Louisiana, so my parents listened to a lot of Cajun music or country music when I was growing up, and yeah, I mean, then I kind of got in, that was just what I heard in the household, and then I got into the more like popular, rock music as
90s.
when growing up. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that I'm really drawn to now, I didn't find until later, like Guy Clark, Towns Van Zandt, John Prine, all those kind of just very wonderful lyric songwriters that I love. Yeah, I didn't find that till later.
Took some time. And Pete, it was Beatles for you?
Yeah, the Beatles were the first music that I fell in love with. They weren't necessarily what was playing. My parents, they love music. My mom's really into opera, and my dad, he's got a really limited palette, but it's pretty good. Like George Strait, Frank Sinatra,
Jim Croce.
and Jim Croce. The
Yeah.
There's a
three
three. There's a
pillars
three.
of
Of course, you don't need anything else besides that, right?
it's good though. I mean, it could be a lot worse, but
Yeah. And did you start with the guitar, or where
yeah, I
did you
did.
kind of start?
I wanted to play drums, and so they got me a guitar in sixth grade, and I took to it because I started, um, they got me lessons with. I grew up in Austin with
Mhm.
and I got lessons with a local professional musician, and he, um, instead of just like, I feel like a lot of guitar teachers, at least from what I've seen, will just kind of start you out with chords and here's what the rhythm guitar player is playing on this, song, he would teach me just the melody, the single note melody to Beatles songs. And so that was my first lessons were learning those melodies on guitar, which I think in retrospect, yeah, and maybe not, but maybe it was just coincidence, but I feel like it kind of gives you an intuition for where the notes are on the guitar, and maybe helped out speed some things along.
Yeah, yeah. And Crystal, you've been writing music since you were a kid, writing poems, really as well. So tell me kind of how you got started, kind of with finding your expressing yourself in that manner.
Yeah, so I was always just writing. I was a very shy and quiet kid, and so that was how I felt comfortable getting things out, was very quietly on paper.
Feed me.
Very quiet. Don't use words. Just write it all down. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that, that was just how I got things out. And then toward the end of, I didn't get a guitar. Like I mean, I took piano lessons and for a few years, and I was in middle school band. I played flute and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't, I didn't really have like that musicality, like Pete. That wasn't my route to it. For me, it was the writing. And then toward the end of high school is when I got a guitar. Right after I graduated high school, I got a guitar. And so Jewel was a big thing for me at that time. And it was like she was the first one, like in that kind, in the popular music world, where it was like the lyrics were so forward. They were just like, that was that first album she put out, that was like the heart of it. And it's like, oh, you can like say things like that. And so like, what?
Yeah.
Because again, I hadn't been like really exposed to those other, obviously people have come before and done that kind of thing, but that wasn't, I hadn't really been exposed to that at that point. And it's like, well, maybe what I'm writing wants to be songs, I think. And so got a guitar to be a vehicle for that. So didn't really, kind of self-taught or through friends, and didn't really go the proper route of taking
Yeah.
lessons and stuff, but just to try to like as a new avenue for getting stuff out.
Yeah, and I know your music, your solo music, kind of parlayed into the band's music ultimately. But did you have other bands that you were in before, or was it just writing for yourself?
Yeah, for me, very much just myself. So Pete and I, we met in 2009, and 2008 was the first time I ever got on a stage at an open mic, and I was terrified. Like I had never done anything like that, and it was very, yeah. I was living in Florida at the time, and I knew I was only going to be there for a year, what I was there for. And I found this little cafe, and they had an open mic. Okay, before I leave, I'm going to get on that stage, and I'm going to do it. And it was terrifying, but there was just something about it that, like, okay, maybe I need to keep pushing and doing this. And so I kept going back, and then moved to Texas, to town where I ended up meeting him. And I was like, okay, I got to find one here and keep trying to do this. And found one, and we ended up going to that same open mic it was both of our first times going to that open mic.
Yeah,
He was in a band.
yeah, you were in a band. Were you doing your own music at the open night or cover?
At the open mic, yeah, and actually that particular open mic was a songwriter open mic, so you had to play at least two of your songs out of three had to be originals. So it was kind of a cool little group of regulars that built up from that, and we ended up going to that for 2 or 3 years before we moved to Houston. It was a really cool little spot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so, so was it just natural, kind of when after that open mic, you two just hit it off, and you were like, okay, did the relationship come first, or did the writing, making music together come first?
The relationship came first. I was like I said, I played guitar first, and it wasn't till a couple years later that I got a banjo, and that, me getting that and kind of like figuring some stuff out, it just, for whatever reason, that lent automatically and really without much thought, it just lent to what she was writing. And was the easiest thing, you know, to recognize that there was something there that we should explore. And so then we kind of like came up with the Ordinary Elephant name and started going to open mics in Houston and yeah,
Yeah.
traveling, whatnot. Yeah.
And so the banjo is such a defining part of your music, really, at this point now, right? And so tell me kind of about bringing that into the mix, and first of all, what inspired you to get the banjo?
Yeah, it was actually Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, their 2011 album called Harrow in the Harvest. And I was really into that record and this particular song called Hard Times. It starts off with just Gillian playing the banjo, clawhammer style. And something about it just like reached through the speakers and grabbed me and was like, or you need to have a banjo. And yeah, so when I got the banjo, I looked up on YouTube on how to play clawhammer, and it's just such a beautiful sound that yeah, it like I said, it was pretty easy to work it into what was going on, and
Yeah, and I feel like that's so like, I mean, he's good at anything he picks up. Like he's one of those people that can that can play just about anything, you know. But and I mean, he was great at guitar, still is. But I don't know, there's just something with banjo that feels so like that is his instrument. You know, just the way he plays it and approaches it, and you know, we get that comment all the time. You know, people love his playing, and it's kind of different, or just like it stands out from banjo that they've heard or expected before, and it just I don't know. I feel like there's this deep-seated connection
well,
with that instrument.
not everyone's heard clawhammer that
Mm-hmm.
we played to, so so the warmth of that style is, I think, stands out to people that who've only heard, you know, bluegrass banjo, which I love, but I understand how it can be harsh sometimes depending on who's playing, or you know, really bright at the very least. And yeah, and me not really growing up in a tradition that I learned banjo with like tunes or anything. I just kind of was figuring it out, and maybe the Beatles
I was about to
thing
say, I'm sure the way that
lent to that.
yeah, the way he was talking about that he learned, you know, guitar lessons, learning the melody. That's such a, I feel like a big thing that he does is, you know, plays those little melody lines, or not necessarily the exact melody, but some like picking out single note lines that just complement what's happening. And I'm sure that was a big part of how you approached that instrument, you know.
Yeah, and the banjo's just the way it sounds. You only need one note to get a message across. It's so uh just the tone of it really cuts through a guitar rhythm playing, and so yeah, it that's kind of what the automatic thing, I guess, is like that, just that instrument lends to the speaking.
Yeah, yeah, and Christopher, I mean, you tell me about finding your voice. Like, I mean, you have a unique voice as well. I mean, it really balances well with the banjo on a lot of your songs. I like it. So tell me kind of about that process for you.
Yeah, like you mean singing voice or
Yeah,
writing?
yeah. So singing voice, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up thinking that either you could sing or you couldn't. You know, like you were just either you were one of those people that could or you couldn't, and I was very sad that I couldn't, and because I wanted to, like you hear these people singing and like you want to do it, and then like learned over time like, oh hey, you can actually take lessons. Like it's a thing you can learn. It's a skill. And sure, there are people born naturally able to do these things they don't even realize they're doing, but I was not one of those people. But didn't mean that I couldn't figure out what's going on and try to get better at it. And so, you know, I've taken lessons over the years from different people and just learned more about it. And that, um, yeah, it's been really interesting and fun figuring that out, like getting more confident in that and like oh, hey, I know what's happening, or like this isn't happening, but I know why, and trying to figure that out. So yeah, that singing has been a long road for me, coming like a very um a change. And again, I was very quiet, so just
Yeah.
getting up and doing that has been a journey, being comfortable doing it. And yeah,
You've grown a ton.
yeah, and I'm grateful for it, to be like that. I've continued to show up and be willing to, like, okay, I'm gonna try keep trying this and trying to make it to where it feels um
It's such
right.
a personal instrument that I think it's easy for people to feel, obviously, people feel self-conscious automatically, but I think that keeps people from learning and
Hmm.
like, because you're gonna sound bad at whatever you're learning. And
Yeah,
so sounding bad at something so personal can be really defeating
right. Like that's such a
instantly.
part of you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, this other instrument, and then you can put that instrument away, and you are not. It's not part of you. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can't disconnect yourself from that. And so yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, it's a very personal thing. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a good way to look at it too. I mean, I think a lot of people quit things too early because they're afraid of failure, or they fail once and don't realize that a lot of learning and growth comes from failing and diving into those uncomfortable areas, that yeah, right, and challenging yourself. And so I mean, being able to take yourself to that vulnerable place and kind of grow that piece of you, something that you know is there, but you're like, it's just not, it's not there yet. It's pretty
Yeah.
admirable.
I think part of that, is like, you don't have to be vulnerable in front of an audience ever, really. I I think it echoes my path on like listening to lyrics and writing lyrics. I was very vulnerable in front of Crystal. I never listened to lyrics for the longest time, and it never resonated with me until maybe 10, 15 years ago. But like, then we started, I wouldn't even get it, like, what are they even trying to say with some of the poetry? And so I'd probably ask her the dumbest questions, like, what does that mean, they're trying to go home? Or I don't know what it would have been, but she was always, she never made fun of me for for uh for that. And that's a real gift, to be able to find someone that you can be vulnerable in front of and learn from. So I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah,
Did
and
you?
the same. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say the same with like instrument wise. Like I said, I never took, guitar was not something I took lessons with, and so like when we first met, like my rhythm and timing was not on. Like I wasn't doing it right, and I didn't know that. Like I would
Yeah.
make it fit around the words I was singing, and I would like add a measure or do this, and like I don't know, I didn't I didn't know, and yeah, he was very gracious and like taught me that without making me feel dumb, or like, oh, you're doing, what are you doing, or so, it was just like, hey, this is a way to do it. And that, you know one just taught me that, oh, there's a different, a more structured way to do this, to allow people to play with you better. And yeah, like made me want to learn it and be better at it and not feel like shameful about it. And yeah, he's a great teacher always. And yeah, I feel like I'm always constantly learning instrumental things like that. And just, as I mean, I'm trying to get better at guitar now, and the same thing, like, yeah, I feel dumb all the time as I'm trying to do this, like, because I've been now a rhythm player for a while, and it's like, okay, I want to expand that and be able to speak more with the instrument than I have been able to. And yeah, it feels like it's a weird thing to do once you've kind of like, okay, we're out there, we're playing shows, and we have an audience, and then to like, okay, I'm gonna step back and try to learn this thing. It's like, well, then how do you bring that to a stage,
At what point do you do that and everything too? Right. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so just
Good-
on the backside of it, I'm trying to do more of that, learn more of the technicalities of things. And yeah, it's always very very helpful with that.
Yeah, that takes a vulnerability too, to eventually kind of take yourself out of that comfort zone and do it in front of other people and say, okay, maybe you don't have this thing fully fledged yet, but I'm gonna try, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your first work together, was that Dusty Words in Cardboard Boxes?
You found it. Yeah.
Hey, it does exist.
Yeah. We recorded that in Houston on weekends, and this really cool little home studio. Fellow named Jack Saunders, who's a really great musician and engineer. Yeah, he was a great shepherd for those songs, and um, yeah, those are mostly stuff that you wrote, and then I was like, oh, here's
As part of
banjo, and
as part of that open mic though, because
oh yeah,
that part of it, his roommate would give a prompt like a every other week, to bring like, here, write a song, whatever, according to this thing, and then people would bring it to the open mic, and so a lot of those songs came out of that time. And yeah, we were playing open mics, and people started playing a few shows, and people were like, oh, do you have a recording? Well, I guess maybe we should do that. And so
hmm
we didn't know what we were doing, and we just were like, okay, let's try this. And but yeah, like you said, Jack, it was a great person to work with for that first, like, diving into that world of trying to put your songs down. And so yeah, that one's it's out of print now. We've changed and grown a lot since then, so it's not really doesn't feel as representative, but yeah, it was a little time capsule.
It's a part of that path, right? It's
Yeah.
part of that journey, and yeah, and so then from there, did you start writing together after that point?
yeah, more so together. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we collaborated a lot on the next record. Um,
Yeah, and we still never like I mean everything's technically a co-write, but we never like sit down and start something together. That's just
and
not
write it all the way through.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that we've never done that. It's I'm usually more the lyrics person, and so that I tend to work on something for a while by myself. And sometimes it's me coming up with the melody and the chord progression and all that, and sometimes it's a melody I've stolen from him that I've heard. He's always has melodies coming. So sometimes I've taken that with what I've had in my head, and um, but then at some point come together and work on editing and finishing and arranging and all that.
Yeah, and it wasn't shortly after that first album that you took the plunge and like decided to leave your day job, so to speak, and just go fully into music. Tell me about about that. I mean, that's just a challenge.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was still pretty early in the like us delving into the music thing, um, as we as much as we were, and we weren't leaving it or doing that with the intention of doing music full time. It was more of a lifestyle change. It was kind of like now I feel like everyone knows about like van life or people living on the road full time, RV kind of stuff. And this was like early in that where it was just people were starting to know about that, or like that was being talked about more, and we came across a blog from someone who was doing that, and we're like, what? People do what? We're just like, okay, well, that's interesting. Like, and we couldn't get it out of our head. Just like, well, I feel like we have to try this, right? And it was all at the same time of me feeling like the job I was in was not sustainable long term for me mentally, and just like that all came together. And all right, we got to try. Let's just try this for a while. And so I left that where I was, and he still worked remotely full time when we first started traveling. Um, but that like gave space to do music more. Like I was able to tap back into that creative side more, like just have more mental space to do that. And we were able to do more open mics and shows, and like, hey, maybe this is where we should be going. And that transition to him going to halftime, and then like kept going, and then like okay, we were at a point where it felt like to move further he needed to leave his job fully too. That was we were just going to stay plateaued if that didn't happen. And so it was that felt like the bigger leap, I guess,
Yeah.
at that
2018.
Yeah. That felt like the bigger jump because it was kind of gradual up until then.
Or was there a safety net at all at first and before, or that made you feel kind of comfortable enough to be able to do that, or
Yeah, I mean, we had been on the road for 4 years, and it, you know, we both had good jobs, and so we had a little bit in the bank, and we also both have family who would be, welcome us back if we came home with their tails between our legs.
And job, we both have
Yeah, we
had
could go back to our jobs
right,
if we needed
if we
to.
needed to, and so it just, I guess it didn't. I mean, it was a risk, and it felt like that, but it didn't. Yeah, it didn't feel like there wasn't another option, but it also felt like there wasn't another option of what we should be doing.
needed to
That
happen?
just felt really right, and like for the first time, like, okay, this feels like what we should be directing our energy at.
Yeah. Tell me about the impact of winning the International Folk Music Award. Like, what was that experience like, and how did that affect your ability to kind of continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah, that was that that was a huge surprise for us. Um, we had gone to some Folk Alliance stuff in the years leading up to that. And for folks who don't know, that's um, Folk Alliance is this Folk Alliance International. It's a big organization of folk artists and presenters and house concert hosts, and everybody gets together at least once a year, and networks and plays little 20-minute concerts in hotel rooms, and
It's very
it's a
bizarre,
wild
but
thing.
it's amazing.
It's a cool thing. And
there's like the big one for the international one, and then there's regional ones as well. But the cool thing about that award, most things that you get, accolades or whatever, are things you've submitted for. Like you put your song into a contest, or you do this thing, and this wasn't that. It was just like we got someone tagged us, like, oh, he's nominated, and we're like, what? Oh, like, wow, okay. Like, obviously, we're not gonna win. Look at the other people, but we're just, that's amazing. And then we go to the conference and go to the awards thing,
and they vote on, like, the members of the organization vote on.
Right. Yeah. So people are nominated, and then people who are members vote, and that's how it gets chosen. And so we go to the awards thing, and they say our name, and we're like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what is even happening?" And so just to have, to just have been doing what we felt like we should be doing, and to be recognized for it by your peers, and not without having like, here, hey, please pick me, and just because we were doing it.
And that's when I
felt good. And that
quit
was
my job.
It was like,
And that was it.
now, like, that feels like there's momentum, and there's like, okay, that's not gonna happen again, so let's do that now.
Dive in fully. And one thing I read about you as well is you've played almost every state, South Dakota and Hawaii being the exceptions. Have you gotten there yet, or you have plans to get there?
Nothing on the books. We'd love to, though. And we haven't played every state.
We've just been in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've not played in, but almost. We've not played in North Dakota or Nebraska, huh?
Yeah.
Or Hawaii or South Dakota, obviously.
Or Nevada. I don't think we played in Nevada.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. But otherwise, probably.
Arizona?
No, we've still not played in Arizona. Yeah.
Anyway, got a couple still to get to, so
yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Hawaii should be on that list for sure.
I don't know when Hawaii will happen, but
it takes some work to get over there.
Yeah.
And so
the van would make it.
Underwater van maybe, no? Probably not. Okay. And so tell me about settling in Louisiana. How did that decision come about? Pete, obviously you're from Texas, so were you comfortable kind of making that jump?
Yeah, yeah, that was in 2019, and we had been on the road for 5 years, and we were just kind of looking around, and we felt like we needed to put down some roots, and have like a more permanent creative space, and be near family. Those are kind of the things. And my family's in Central Texas near Austin, and uh, we yeah, we couldn't afford to live there was another thing. Louisiana is a lot more of a bargain, I would say, for getting a spot to be. And my parents are, my dad still works, and but your parents are retired, and um, no other siblings, and so they do so much for us. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes,
Mhm.
and in a good way, like that
Yeah, they're
her
very giving of their time and
yeah.
just support. Like it's yeah, it's been really nice being close, like being able to see them so often,
Yeah.
and um, after being away for so long, like me going off to school and then um, traveling, like then we school lived somewhere, lived away, lived on the road for a while, and so to be back in that way, um, yeah, I think it's been really good for all of us.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, I feel like unless you go there, you're not exposed to the culture much. Even being in Texas, you at least in Austin, a lot of the Louisiana culture didn't quite make it that far, and it's such a rich culture. It's been really cool to be there and be a part of it in a small way when we're home. Um, you know, the Cajun music and Zydeco, and our dog's giving us
Sorry,
hell here
the
for
other one's wanting to
Need some
wanting to get
attention.
up, but not wanting to get up.
Yeah. And shortly after you moved there, I mean, were you on tour in Australia or just on vacation?
on
On
tour.
When
tour.
Yeah, yeah. We went a couple times, and uh, in 2019 we went for a 2 week tour, and then in 2020 in March we went, right, and then COVID hit, right, the
Or
second
lockdown,
show.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like we yeah
tell me the
we
story of getting out. I've talked to a couple bands actually who were in Australia when COVID hit, and so you
Yeah.
were and the scurry to get out and everything. So I'm interested in your story with that.
Right. Yeah,
yeah
we went over for another 2 week tour, and we played a show in Melbourne, and then the second show we were getting ready to sound check, and
this little
they
festival, and we
called the festival, and so we were like, and that was, I think it was a Friday, right? And everyone just shut down everything.
we did play this cool, like, so that night, the festival wasn't going to happen, but there was someone associated with it that had this little a house and like uh, bed and breakfast kind of place, whatever. And they hosted a little like private show for some of the bands who were gonna play at that festival, a little outdoor thing, and that was a really sweet night. Like it was a
This is
really
this is a cool space.
yeah
Felt like we were in Middle Earth
yeah
for
it
a
was
little
just
bit.
it was cool. But yeah, then we had to scramble to like, can we leave? I don't. And
Yeah.
we lucked out because we had booked a place to stay like for several nights as like a base and like an Airbnb kind of thing, and they gave us our money back even though it was just we were canceling so short, and we were able to switch our plane tickets and leave like within a day or two.
And one of the
And
festivals paid us.
oh yeah,
Like,
still paid us,
yeah, it
and
was really
Wow.
nice.
yeah, we felt. I mean, obviously we lost money overall,
Oh
but
yeah.
we still felt very lucky. We were it all worked fine. We didn't get sick, and although we were very scared that we were going to on the long part of the flight back, like the 16-hour leg of the flight, there was an elderly woman in front of us, thankfully wearing a mask, but just like
Hawking up along and
clearly very sick, and it
yeah.
was like we were right behind her, like okay, we're gonna get it. Like,
We'll get this out of the way early, and
you know,
It's crazy.
yeah, yeah, lucky about that. And so your new album is self-titled. I know you were like workshopping some of the names for it and kind of settled on this name because it brought you back to kind of the roots of, I mean, really just you two, without any backup or anything along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Next question. No.
Yeah, it just nothing was feeling right, title wise. And it like we thought about that and we're like, well, yeah, maybe so. It felt we hadn't done that yet, and it
Nothing's ever been that stripped down that we've released, and it just felt like we had arrived at a place where we were doing exactly what we could do best. And and yeah, I don't know where we'll go from here yet, but maybe this is the most true group of songs that we've put out.
Yeah, and you expected the album to be bigger when you went into the process, but in working with Dirk Powell, like he convinced you to kind of slim it down. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he didn't. He convinced us to what? We'll start over. We went in, just kind of thinking Dirk would add music. Uh, he would add sounds to it because, for those of y'all who don't know, Dirk Powell is just uh, a legendary roots musician. He's a master Appalachian fiddler and banjo player, and he also, he married a Cajun woman and went down and learned Cajun accordion and played with master Cajun musicians, and now carries on that tradition too. So he's like, he's played bass on one of our favorite Tim O'Brien albums, called Traveler. Uh, and it just, he's been everywhere, and Joan Baez, blah, blah, blah. Endless accolades for Dirk, and so we just assumed, like, man, he would make us sound really good if he played something on this and collaborated with him. But there, we went into it.
And he had that mindset too.
Yeah.
The plan was like lay down our stuff and then decide what it wants. What feels like it needs to be added.
The other thing I was gonna say is, like, Dirk is a songwriter too, which he's a really wonderful songwriter, which is not super common to have someone of that stature instrumentally also be a really heartfelt and uh, deep songwriter. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to work with him, and having that perspective on things, and having been producer on some wonderful albums, and we knew he would keep the song at the center, because that's what we have always tried to do, is make sure the song has what it needs to be what it can. So we've recorded what we do live, and we thought he would add stuff, and so he mixed, did some preliminary mixing, and came back and was like, hey, I kind of think these are done. I could add stuff, but my inclination would be, they're done. And that was scary at first.
Yeah.
But I don't think, in retrospect, I don't know if we would have been as confident going into it if we knew that was going to be how it was going to turn out. And
Sure.
Yeah, we went in knowing, like, okay, it's just us two. Then we'd have gotten in our heads a little too much, or So it was a good, like, little.
We had to be tricked
Trick,
into
yeah.
it. Not that Dirk was tricking us at all.
Right.
yeah, it was scary at first, but then like, okay, like this is what we brought him on board for, was for his
Yeah.
opinion, and like he made a good point at some time during the process when we were like going back and forth about a particular take, like which take to use, and that we can never hear it the way he can, or the way someone else can. Like we're too inside the songs, and so just remembering that, and like, okay, he's hearing it as a listener, and we know the kind of listener he is and his abilities. So taking, like, really trusting that, and um, being like saying, okay, yeah, then they are done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a song on the album, Highway 61, and a couple points on this song. On Before I Go, you have Highway 71. So first off, is there a correlation there?
There, there's only Highway 71 on Before I Go. There isn't another highway song
Yeah.
on the
Wait,
new.
say that again. You cut out for a second.
Oh, there isn't a song with highway on the new record. There's Highway 71
Oh,
Before I Go, but there isn't one.
oh, okay. What does I say? What did I? Okay, I told again. This is the second time I made something up. So, um, where did I get? Okay, I don't know where I got that. Okay, so apologies. I thought
It's
that
okay.
was okay. Anyway, I thought there was a Highway 61. And was it Highway 71, Pete, that you were singing lead on?
No, I sang I sang a little bit of lead on a song called The Prophet on this record. Um, Highway 71 from a couple records ago was kind of about this wildfire, um one of the largest wildfires in Texas history at that point in 2011, and near Bastrop in kind of central Texas. But yeah, this record I did sing a little bit of lead for a song called The Prophet. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, that one. So when we had lived on the road full time, um, we didn't want to get a storage unit, and so we either like brought stuff or sold it or got rid of it, and okay, we're not doing the storage unit thing. But then we had a few boxes that were like, well, we don't want to bring these, but we don't want to get rid of this stuff, like sentimental things. And um, yeah, so our parents lovingly allowed us to leave these boxes at their at their houses, and then gave them right back to us once we got a place again. Um, but when as we were going back through them, once we got a place, inside one of them was a copy of The Prophet, and a friend had gifted it to me many years ago, and I was just reading through it because I hadn't in a while, and that song started coming to me, and we quote part of the, like, a piece from The Prophet in the song, and so
Yeah.
that we had the idea. I mean, we're both singing the whole time, harmony the whole time, but then on that part, to just make it a little more clear that I mean, it's hard to show quotation marks in a song, and
Yeah.
so trying to, like, the words leading up to it try to convey that, like, hey, this is a quote, but to try to make it a little more impactful, or convey that we had switched voices, to have Pete sing lead on that part.
Yeah. And Crystal, one thing that I really think is interesting also, you have a book of poems that go along with one with each song on the album. Tell me kind of your idea behind that and kind of how that came about.
Yeah, so like poetry is all, like we talked about earlier, has always been something that I've done. And when we put out the record in 2019, we also did a poetry book, and it didn't necessarily go with the record as a companion. It was another thing to put out there. And yeah, hey, I've got a lot of stuff. Why not also put that out there? And then so for this record, we had 5 years of writing. Well, okay, let's do that again. But these felt a little more connected. It felt like the songs and the poetry, like, lived together in a way that it hadn't necessarily before. And so we set it up to where each each song on the record has a section in the book, and it starts with that song's lyrics, and then there are pieces that kind of live within that song's orbit. And so we just organized it that way. That felt like the most natural way to organize it. And then so we did vinyl for this record too. We hadn't done that before, but it wouldn't fit on one side on one vinyl, and so we took the leap into double vinyl. And so the songs are across the first 3 sides, but we didn't need to spread it across 4. We just needed 3. And so on the 4th side, we decided to do poetry, because during our shows, I read stuff from the book, and so well, that's part of the show. Let's make it part of the record as well, or the vinyl at least. And so on that 4th side, there are select pieces from the book of me reading those. And that's the only place they live, actually. It's not on the CD version.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I'm curious, as we kind of wind out, is there a favorite concert that you've been to, or maybe a memory from a show that you've done that kind of really stands out as this kind of really exciting moment that kind of helped define you and your live show?
Good question.
Yeah, I guess for shows that we've played, like most recently, we just played a series that was our 2nd time playing there in Washington, and man, the audience there is just, they're like the most loving and giving audience. It was probably like 75 people, but it felt like a stadium of 1,000 people. Like they're just they give so much. And when we experienced that the first time we went there, and this time we were like, okay, that was the first time they saw us. Maybe that, it's just this like initial thing, and it's not going to be there. Like, nope, there again, full force, just so like it felt like you couldn't do anything wrong. It makes it so much, you feel so much freer to like, it's always an exchange with the audience, but when they're that open and giving back, and it just feels even more like a conversation between you and the audience, and it just, it helps solidify like, okay, this this is what we want to be doing.
I remember seeing, this is kind of maybe not the same thing at all, but I remember seeing the Punch Brothers on their first tour back in 2008, and it was at the Ram's Head in Annapolis, which is a pretty small room, and they were playing The Blind Leading the Blind, which is like their 40-minute piece that Chris Thile had written for the band. And man, that was one of the most awe-inspiring shows I think I've seen, just off the top of my head. I to see a group like that in such a small room, in such an intimate room, and just playing into 2 microphones and all acoustic. That show sticks with me still. It was really, really incredible.
That's awesome. Well, Crystal and Pete, thank you for taking the time today, and congratulations on the new album. It's a lot of fun, and for I hope you're enjoying the weather out here on the West Coast a little bit.
Yeah. And we'll be at the Back Room in Berkeley next week. I don't know when this is coming out.
It's coming out Monday.
Monday, sweet.
Yeah.
So we'll be at the Back Room
Wednesday, right?
On Wednesday, and then Thursday we'll be down in Santa Cruz. So hope to see some folks out there.
Nice. Well, enjoy the tour, and thanks so much for taking the time. I hope you have a good weekend ahead. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Such a lovely conversation. We really appreciate it.
That was my interview with Ordinary Elephant here on Concert Pipeline, and that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. couple stories to wind out the program today. First off, Green Day. Let's talk about Green Day. They there's video of this. You can find it online. But they were rushed off stage mid-song during a Michigan concert. It's really interesting the whole why behind that happened. But they were in the middle of their performance when they suddenly stopped playing, ran off stage, leaving fans with only a vague message on the overhead screens. They were playing Longview, and a crew member entered the stage as the music then suddenly stopped, and Billy Joe Armstrong is seen racing off alongside his bandmates. Fans reported screens, then changed to a message that read, "Show pause, please stand by for details." Really sudden. It lasted several minutes before the band ultimately continued on with their performance with no explanation of what happened. Billy Joe Armstrong asked if everybody was okay as they returned to the stage, and he said, "Let's be here right now." Green Day later wrote on X in a now deleted message that the delay was due to a potential safety issue. DPD quickly resolved the situation, and we were able to continue. "Thanks for understanding," it said. And they've apparently taken it off. The police told the Detroit Free Press that the issue stemmed from a drone being flown over the venue. The operator of the drone was located and detained pending further investigation. So just a quick little scare, I guess. They don't mess around with that stuff. And someone thought that they could get a drone in to a Green Day show that they were couldn't afford tickets to, probably, because those tickets are fucking expensive. And people don't mess around with that stuff. I mean, you don't know what a drone has or is capable of, and you got to protect your Green Day. They got a lot more on the Saviors tour to be doing, and a lot more great things to do. They're taking names and rocking out for sure. Okay, speaking of Green Day, Pinhead Gunpowder, the band featuring Billy Joe Armstrong and touring guitarist Jason White have announced a new album titled UNT, U-N-T. In advance of its October 18th release, the punk outfit has unveiled the title track, its first new song in 16 years. And Armstrong and White rounded up by drummer Aaron Cometbus and bassist Bill Schneider. They issued the following statement regarding their long hiatus and the new album. Pinhead Gunpowder started writing songs in 1990 and made their first 7-inch in the following spring. But since 2010, they've been playing just for themselves, something bands forget to do. Rather than writing for the new album or rehearsing to get ready for tour, we went back to the basement every year. We lived in the house we built, remembering how we made the music for each other in the first place. We played all over the world. Well, at least Oakland, Singapore, New York, but only for each other. We worked on the reissues of our back catalog too, and found themselves fonder of each other and more family-like than ever. And a new record was only a matter of time. But between the members' other bands, this little band Green Day that is on this world tour playing their hit albums in its entirety, and families, that time was hard to find. When we finally did, we were all surprised. They think it's their best album yet. Their catchiest and most collaborative and most poignant. So you can check that out. The album is going to be out really soon. 14 songs, it says, produced by Chris Dugan, who has also produced Green Day, Weezer, and Iggy Pop. There's the song "Unt" is out currently, so you can see that if you want more to hear a little bit of Pinhead Gunpowder. Okay, Linkin Park is the big news of the week, and this one is there was a countdown timer that went down to 0, and then it started counting up. So Linkin Park pretty much punked people with their countdown timer, and they have returned with a new singer, new music, and a world tour, what they call a world tour. It's 6 shows across the world, really, and this is their first tour since the death of Chester Bennington in 2017. They have a new co-vocalist, Emily Armstrong, after several years on hiatus. And they live streamed a performance that amped up their long-standing fan base around the world. They announced these 6 initial gigs. One is in Los Angeles, and they're finishing in Bogota, Colombia in November. And The album, poetically titled From Zero, set for release November 15th, will be the group's first since One More Light in 2017. And Armstrong co-founded the rock group Dead Sarah as co-vocalist during their performance Thursday, which featured new tracks The Emptiness Machine, as well as old favorites Numb and In the End. They brought on a new drummer, Colin Britton. I guess the other guy had resigned. He had talked about not wanting to be with the band for a while, so they kind of moved on without him. And so they're doing some stuff. There's some controversy over their new singer, who is a Scientologist and had reportedly backed this an actor from That 70s Show who was convicted of several counts of rape. But she's put out a statement after all this backlash saying that she didn't know what had happened. I don't know. Maybe she was friends with him or something, but she doesn't stand behind or doesn't support any of that stuff, and hasn't talked to him in years since, or I mean, even since the trial after all this stuff came out. She was in the courtroom though when it happened, so there was speculation that she had backed him. Okay. Next up, Super Bowl 2025 halftime show is going to be Kendrick Lamar, who previously appeared during Dr. Dre's 2022 All-Star halftime show. So I just see this cyclical thing. I mean, Kendrick Lamar's huge. I don't know a lot of Kendrick Lamar's music necessarily, but I mean, if he was in the show 2 years ago, I mean, I guess it will be 3 years ago by the time Kendrick performs. Shouldn't we try some other artists, like have someone else play who hasn't played in recent years, give that opportunity to another band? That's kind of just my thought, but that was just announced, so there it is. And Oasis, lots of Oasis news. Oasis tickets went on sale for their tour that's almost a year from now, and the ticket sales, of course, didn't go very well. A lot of people were left without tickets. Oasis revealed a private ballot details for 2 extra Wembley Stadium reunion shows, and invitations to the ballot were sent overnight to fans who had been in the queue but then experienced issues. They got the email addresses of the fans and then gave them a special invite-only way to get tickets to these shows. So that's pretty cool, I gotta admit. I mean, there's a lot of challenges with people with concert sales. I mean, first off, from the Ticketmaster Live Nation fees, which are astronomical, to fans being out ticketed by scalpers and bots and all of that challenges to just, I mean, being able to put the tickets in fans' hands at a price that's affordable, when bands can make an effort to think outside the box and find creative new ways to do it. I support it. Liam Gallagher is teasing a new Oasis album, saying on social media that it's already finished. So they might have new music, which I don't expect to be able to see Oasis again, especially with how challenging it is to get tickets and affordable tickets. I saw them once in 2006, I think, and I always figured that was going to be the only chance I'd ever have to see Oasis live after they broke up for 15 years. So maybe I'll get to see them, but I'm definitely interested in checking out a new album if they put out a new album. I don't know what to make of the whole brother feud and, what effect that'll have on future new music or touring or what have you. But always good when you can bury the hatchet and just kind of move forward. That's a really positive thing. So, and then there's huge speculation over who's going to be in the band, with a lot of names floated over people who have been in either their individual bands or in Oasis in the past. Ultimately, all I care about is Liam and Noel Gallagher sharing a stage together. I think that's the cool part. So that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Next week on the program, we have Jack Barksdale. He has a new album that is coming out. This was a really fun interview to get to talk to him. He's 17 years old, and friggin' wise beyond his years. I mean, musically, like just an incredible musician, and I look forward to seeing where his career takes him in the future. We'll get into that next week. So, for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.